Hello, this is Liz. Welcome to Monday. I double checked, it is Monday. And we are here this is director picks rather than movie picks, where I'll talk about either current or former director and hopefully give you a little bit of film information. Apologize for some of the delay. There's been a little bit of a change with Facebook Live, so I'm kind of learning that, but I'm sure we can all relate as we're all kind of learning this stuff as we go along. So today, as I said, I'm going to talk about one of the best directors you may not know about, and her name is Reichardt. And you may have heard of her, or at least heard of some of her movies, but she's definitely one of the more indie underground directors. But she's also made some of the best American movies of the new millennium. And I will say, if you're a fan of Michelle Williams, you probably have heard of her, but we will get to that. So, some background info on her. She was born in 1964, and she actually has a local connection. Well, she grew up in Florida. She got her MFA from the School of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. So, somewhat of a local connection to us. Her first movie was in 1994, and it was River of Grass. She got a lot of acclaim on the indie circuit, including Sundance. She won a lot of awards for it. However, despite that film being very well received, no one was willing to fund her next feature, so she ended up making short films. And this is not uncommon for a lot, not just for a lot of indie directors, but for a lot of women directors. You can actually make a film that is relatively successful and still not get someone willing to invest in your next feature. They still see it as risky. I actually think a great example of this is Patty Jenkins, who directed Monster and won Charlize Theron an Oscar. She didn't get a major motion picture again until Wonder Woman, and that was 13 years later. So once Reichardt returned to full-length feature film, she made Old Joy in 2006, which is about two friends who go on a journey. Wendy and Lucy, which is a personal favorite. It's a story of a girl and her dog, although it's a sad twist on it. She's kind of a transient person, and the dog is the only real companion she has. 2010, she makes Meek's Cut Off, once again collaborating with Michelle Williams, about a group of travelers lost on the Oregon Trail. 2013, she makes a slightly less indie movie called Night Moves, which is about a bunch of environmental activists. 2016, she makes Certain Women, which is set in Montana, actually a departure from a lot of her films. And her current movie, which was going to be out in theaters, but then COVID happened, is called First Cow, and it has been getting fantastic reviews. So what sets Kelly Reichardt apart from a lot of other directors? Well, especially now, she is a very minimalist director, or you could also call her a realist. A.O. Scott said that her film Wendy and Lucy has thematic and aesthetic similarities to classic Italian neorealism films like Rome, Open City, and Parisian. And so being a minimalist or a realist means she doesn't do a lot of flashy techniques in her filmmaking, and also means she doesn't use a lot of editing tricks. She definitely doesn't use special effects. And a lot of her stories are fairly low key as well. A lot of her stories involve journeys or someone, on the way to somewhere. Old Joy is two friends going on a fairly, it's like a camping trip together. Wendy and Lucy is about a transient woman on her way to Alaska. Meek's Cut Off is about, someone traveling on the Oregon Trail. Or there's Certain Women, which is women who are kind of on the journey of life. I have not seen First Cow, so I can't comment on that one. But still, they're not very flashy movies. But if you are someone who just likes a good story and likes to just be immersed, these are great films for you. And she doesn't like to, and these are her own words, she doesn't like to romanticize her characters. So she likes to not only focus on, minimal stories or like low-key stories, she also likes to focus on people who are on the fringes of society. So Wendy and Lucy, the character, is essentially a homeless woman. And working class characters, such as the characters in Certain Women. But she doesn't like to romanticize them. She doesn't like to, make them overly noble. She prefers, as many filmmakers do, sort of in the neo-realist movement, which kind of started back in the 50s and 60s, kind of showing life just as it was, not a heightened version of reality. Not Another thing that she likes, which when I saw Meek's Cutoff with a few friends in theaters, this actually made some of us a little mad. Not me, but she likes ambiguous endings, and she likes ambiguity in general. But she, some people they don't like ambiguity, they get mad at it. She says, she goes, I trust the audience to kind of find their way, figure out what they like and don't like about the movie. And she likes to leave things up in the air because for her, that goes into her philosophy of filmmaking and storytelling, which is as close to real life as humanly possible. And, real life, their endings aren't tied up in a bow. Another fun fact about her, she likes to edit her own films. And I was saying this earlier, she likes to collaborate with Michelle Williams. So post Brokeback Mountain, Michelle Williams was getting a lot of buzz as like, oh, this girl who is on this teen show actually seems to be a really good actress. And people were trying to figure out how to use her. And Kelly Reichardt, I think, was the first director who really saw what Michelle Williams was good at. And she could do a lot of good nonverbal acting. She could communicate a lot with her face and her body language. And she put her in Wendy and Lucy, and that was a huge, it didn't get a lot of, it did make a lot of money. It didn't get a ton of mainstream awards, but there were a lot of people talking about potentially an Oscar nomination for Michelle Williams, and people just saying, oh, hey, we need to start paying attention to this actress. And lo and behold, Michelle Williams is up there as one of the best working actresses today. And she still does collaborate with Kelly Reichardt. She was in Meek's Cutoff, which is a great movie. If you like Westerns, but something that's a little more realistic, Meek's Cutoff is fantastic. And she's in Certain Women as well. So she doesn't have a ton of features, which again, this is almost a little bit easier because the pool is a little bit smaller. But if I had to recommend one film as a starting point, I would say Wendy and Lucy. Again, it's a nice take on sort of the person and their dog story. Don't worry, the dog makes it through. The dog is alive. I feel like anytime there's like a serious movie involving a dog, I need to tell them like, hey guys, dog's fine, don't worry. I would say Wendy and Lucy, and I would also recommend Meek's Cutoff. I would actually consider Meek's Cutoff to be potentially her most mainstream film. And I will say, if it's on demand and you would like to throw some money towards an independent film, or better yet, there are theaters like the Coolidge Corner Theater and Red River up in Concord, which do have virtual screening rooms. If you would like to see it that way, you can do that. But I will also, since I buy a lot of fiction DVDs, I'll have my eye out, so eventually the library will have a copy. Have a great day. I hope you check out at least some of her movies, and I will see you tomorrow with What's on Netflix.